Welcome to another deep dive. We're going to be cracking open this book that's been making waves, at least in certain circles. It's called The Pillars of Tubal Cain, An Ancient Mystery Solved. And it promises to connect some pretty wild stuff we're talking, like angelic magic, biblical figures, and even some modern esoteric practices.
Yeah, and it's not just, a surface level look at this stuff. I mean, the book really goes in depth into the world of angelic magic, not just as some historical thing, but as a real force that shaped Western esoteric traditions as we know them.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
This angelic magic, the book keeps coming back to these beings called watchers. What's their deal?
Yeah.
Seems like it all revolves around forbidden knowledge.
Right. It's drawing a lot from the Book of Enoch, where these watchers, who are angels, come down to Earth, and they share this knowledge that was never meant for humans. But the book goes deeper than just saying, forbidden knowledge. It actually names specifics like metallurgy and even weaponry and even things like manipulating consciousness.
Whoa, okay, so we're not talking about the secret ingredient for grandma's cookies here. This is stuff that could reshape civilization.
Exactly, yeah. And it doesn't shy away from the consequences either. The book links this whole thing to that biblical story, the sons of God and the daughters of men, the one that results in the birth of giants. It's painting this picture where divine intervention basically goes wrong with knowledge is both, this amazing catalyst and this potential source of chaos.
Right, that duality. It's interesting how that theme pops up all over the place, knowledge being both a blessing and a curse.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of the perfect setup for how the book introduces Tubal Cain. He's a descendant of Cain, the first murderer. And in the Bible, he's credited with being the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron, basically, the first blacksmith.
Okay, so we're talking about the guy who kicks off the whole metalworking thing.
Yeah.
But the book is saying there's more to it than that.
Way more. The book suggests that his mastery of metal wasn't just, practical skill. It was a form of sacred knowledge, possibly even passed down from those watchers, those angels, who shared those, let's call them dangerous secrets.
So Tubal Cain is like this conduit for this forbidden knowledge. He's shaping civilization through his craft. The book's really positioning him as a central figure, right?
Exactly. It's arguing that he's this bridge figure, someone who embodies both the divine and the material, shaping history itself through this, potentially otherworldly knowledge.
Okay, it's a bold claim. Now let's talk about the pillars. I mean, it's right there in the title, The Pillars of Tubal Cain. What's their significance?
Well, pillars are these, universal symbols. In tons of cultures and traditions, they represent gateways, thresholds, points of transition between realms, and this book connects them specifically to those two famous pillars in Solomon's temples, Jachin and Boaz. Those pillars, especially in Masonic traditions, represent duality, the need to balance opposing forces, light and dark, masculine and feminine, order and chaos, that kind of stuff.
So are we talking about actual physical pillars? Or is this more of a symbolic thing?
It's both, actually. The book plays with those two interpretations. It's suggesting those pillars in Solomon's temple might have been imbued with a deeper esoteric meaning, like they embodied principles of sacred geometry and cosmic energy.
Okay, now that's getting interesting. How does Tubal Cain tie into this whole pillar situation?
The book argues that because of Tubal Cain's skill with metal and his potential connection to the Watchers, he may have been directly involved in the creation of those very pillars. And not just as a blacksmith, but as someone who actually understood their deeper esoteric purpose. It's suggesting those pillars weren't just, decorations or structural elements, but conduits for powerful energies. Maybe even gateways to other dimensions.
Whoa, okay, now we're talking. We're talking about tapping into the hidden forces of the universe, not just bricks and mortar.
Exactly. And this whole link between Tubal Cain, those pillars, and Solomon's temple is really the core of the book's argument. It wants us to consider that ancient civilizations may have had knowledge and tech way beyond what we can even imagine.
Okay, that's a lot to process. And I can't help but notice that all-seeing eye that always seems to be hanging out above those pillars. What's its place in this cosmic puzzle?
For this author, that symbol's about more than just, divine providence. They actually link it directly to Tubal Cain. It's like a symbol of his watchfulness, his presence over humanity's evolution. Like he's this guardian figure making sure we don't screw it all up with our newfound knowledge.
A constant reminder that Big Brother's watching, huh? Or, I guess, Big Tubal Cain. Our actions have consequences, even on a cosmic level.
Right, but it's not necessarily about judgment or, punishment, the book argues that Tubal Cain's all-seeing eye is more about guidance, about protection.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to make sure we use our knowledge wisely and don't give in to like power trips and greed.
Okay, that's a slightly less creepy take on the all-seeing eye than I'm used to. Now, I got to ask about another classic symbol that pops up everywhere, the serpent and the tree.
Ah, yes. The serpent and the tree. Such a powerful combo, right? I mean, you find it in mythologies and religions all over the world. This book focuses on the Garden of Eden story, but it doesn't go with that simple good versus evil interpretation. It explores the serpent as, get this, a symbol of Kundalini energy, that primal force that we all have dormant at the base of our spines.
Okay, so we're talking about tapping into our hidden potential, like unlocking superpowers or something.
Exactly. The book suggests that the way the serpent moves up the tree, which often represents, the spinal column and the chakras, symbolizes spiritual awakening. It's about raising our consciousness to a higher level.
So the serpent's not the bad guy here. It's more like a guide leading us towards enlightenment.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. And the book ties this directly to Tubal Cain, suggesting that his metalworking skills might have been connected to manipulating this very energy, this Kundalini energy.
Well, okay, so he wasn't just shaping metal, he was shaping consciousness. He was tapping into those forces of creation.
Exactly. The book is really making us question what we think of as just myth or symbolism. It's saying those things might hold the keys to understanding the universe and our place in it.
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious about how the book handles Lilith. She's often portrayed as, this demonic figure all about temptation and rebellion. How does the Pillars of Tubal Cain approach her?
It flips the script, honestly. The book argues that Lilith gets a bad rap because people don't understand her true nature. It presents her not as evil, but as a representation of the untamed feminine, those primal aspects that don't fit neatly into the boxes society tries to put them in.
So instead of fearing her, we should be trying to understand her power and integrate it into our own understanding of what it means to be feminine.
Exactly. The book is saying Lilith embodies those qualities that have often been, suppressed, especially in patriarchal societies: independence, self-reliance, and raw sexuality. And it connects her to the moon, to nature's cycles, to those darker, more mysterious aspects of creation.
It sounds like it's challenging us to face those uncomfortable parts of the feminine that we often try to sweep under the rug.
Right. And here's a bold connection. It links Lilith directly to Tubal Cain. It suggests that his mastery of metalworking might have involved harnessing this very Lilithian energy, this raw creative power that can be both life-giving and destructive.
Whoa, okay, that's a lot to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about embracing the shadow, integrating those darker aspects to become whole.
That's the gist of it. The book argues that you can't achieve true spiritual wholeness by denying or repressing those parts of yourself. You got to confront them, understand them, and make them part of who you are.
Now that's a powerful message. It makes you wonder how many other so-called demons or shadow figures throughout history have been totally misunderstood.
Right, and that's exactly what the book encourages us to do. Question those stories that get passed down, those narratives that might be limiting our understanding of ourselves and, well, the whole universe.
Speaking of challenging assumptions, the book also dives into the black bull, another symbol that's pretty loaded. How does it interpret this potent archetype?
Well, as we've been talking about, the black bull represents raw, untamed power. It's like the primal forces of nature, both creative and destructive. And the book connects this directly to Tubal Cain. It suggests that his metalworking might have been about more than just shaping physical objects. It might have been about harnessing and directing this very energy, the black bull energy.
So we're talking about more than just, hammering out some tools. It's like a spiritual alchemy, taking that raw energy and turning it into something extraordinary.
Exactly. And the book argues that Tubal Cain understood that to achieve true mastery, you have to integrate this black bull energy. You have to embrace the shadow self.
It's about acknowledging the darkness, the wildness, the untamed parts of ourselves, and using them, channeling them into something positive and creative.
You got it. And the book asks us, how can we do the same in our own lives? How can we tap into those primal forces and use them to fuel our own personal growth, our spiritual journeys?
Okay, I am feeling that challenge. This deep dive is already turning my understanding of Tubal Cain completely upside down. I'm starting to see how he embodies this really fascinating mix of the practical and the mystical, the material and the spiritual.
That's a key insight. The book is saying Tubal Cain is someone who bridges those worlds, someone who shows us what's possible when we truly integrate the spiritual and material parts of ourselves.
Okay, I am hooked. I can't wait to see where this goes next. It feels like we've barely scratched the surface of these ancient mysteries.
Oh, we've just begun. What I find so fascinating is how the book weaves all these seemingly random things together, angelic magic, biblical figures, these universal archetypes, and it creates this whole coherent picture of just how significant Tubal Cain is in shaping human consciousness itself.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle, uncovering this whole hidden history. And it's challenging everything we thought we knew about the past, while also offering this glimpse into like the vast potential of what it means to be human.
That's what makes it so compelling, right? It's not just about digging up old knowledge. It's about understanding how that knowledge can actually illuminate our present and even shape our future.
Okay, I'm ready to go down this rabbit hole. Let's see how the book connects Tubal Cain to another fascinating group, the Yazidis.
Yeah, the Yazidis. They're a pretty small and often misunderstood religious group, mostly found in Iraq. And they hold this really unique place in all of this whole exploration. They've got these ancient traditions and beliefs that give us this like window into the past, and it's a fascinating perspective on these very mysteries we've been, talking about.
Okay, you've really piqued my curiosity. What is it about the Yazidis that makes them so relevant to Tubal Cain and all these ancient mysteries we've been discussing?
Well, their cosmology, their understanding of the universe is really interesting. They believe in one God, a supreme being who created everything. But then he entrusted the care of the world to 7 angels.
Okay, 7 angels. That number keeps popping up everywhere in this deep dive.
It really does, doesn't it? And it just like reinforces this idea that there are these divine intermediaries, these beings who bridge the gap between us humans and the divine, like those watchers we were talking about.
Right. Those angels who shared that forbidden knowledge, the knowledge that the book says is linked to Tubal Cain.
Exactly. And the Yazidis have this primary angel, Melekteus. He's often depicted with peacock feathers. He's known as the peacock angel.
Peacock angel? Wow. That's a pretty striking image. What does that symbolize for the Yazidi?
Well, the peacock represents, beauty, transformation, immortality. It suggests this connection to divine light, something pure and radiant. The book suggests that Melekteus kind of embodies this transformative power, like he's a guide and protector for humanity.
So Melekteus is like this radiant being leading humanity towards enlightenment.
You could say that, but what's really fascinating is that the book also points out this like darker side to Melekteus, as it draws a parallel to, the story of Lucifer, the fallen angel.
Okay, so there's a fall from grace involved.
Exactly. According to Yazidi beliefs, Melekteus was cast out of heaven, but then he was redeemed, and God gave him the job of ordering the universe. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Unlike the traditional view of Lucifer rebelling against God, the Yazidis see Melekteus' descent as a necessary step in his evolution.
So it's not seen as a bad thing, but as this transformative experience that ultimately empowers him to fulfill his purpose.
Exactly. The book says this Yazidi belief really aligns with the whole archetype of the hanged man, where surrender and a shift in perspective are necessary for spiritual growth. It makes you think that what we see as a failure or a setback could actually be what leads to profound transformation.
That's a powerful idea. It's like those times in our lives when things seem to be falling apart, but then we come out stronger and wiser on the other side.
Exactly. And the book really stresses how important this idea is to the Yazidi worldview, embracing the shadow, finding power in those experiences that we usually see as, negative.
Okay, I'm definitely starting to see those connections. The Yazidis, the hanged man, Tubal Cain, they all seem to be saying the true power comes from integrating those darker, those primal parts of ourselves.
You're picking up on it, and the book goes even deeper, saying that the Yazidis practice a form of black magic, which, as you know, is a term that, has some pretty negative baggage.
Oh, yeah. Black magic usually conjures up images of, evil spells and curses,
Yeah.
But I have a feeling the book is offering a different perspective on this.
You bet. It emphasizes that the way the Yazidis understand black magic isn't about, hurting people or manipulating them for selfish reasons. It's about working with those darker forces of nature, those primal energies that can be both creative and destructive, all at the same time.
So it's about acknowledging and respecting the power of those energies, but using them for, good.
Precisely. The book suggests that for the Yazidis, black magic is a way to tap into the raw power of creation, to connect with those primal forces that drive the cycles of life, death, and rebirth.
It's like saying that darkness isn't inherently evil. It's part of the balance,
Yeah.
a force that can be used for good or bad.
Exactly. And the book connects this Yazidi understanding of black magic to Tubal Cain's skill as a metalworker. It's suggesting that his ability to transform those raw materials into beautiful and useful objects wasn't just a physical skill. It reflected his deep understanding of these subtle forces at work in the universe.
So Tubal Cain wasn't just a blacksmith. He was like an alchemist, someone who knew how to like manipulate energy and consciousness to create something totally new.
That's a great way to put it. The book is saying his craft wasn't just about, manipulating physical things. It was about working with those primal energies that underlie everything, all of creation.
It really makes you wonder what other secrets might be hidden within those ancient crafts and traditions, just waiting to be rediscovered.
Doesn't it? And the book wants us to approach these traditions with an open mind, to look beyond the surface and consider the deeper meanings, the possibilities that are encoded within them.
Now, I know the book also talks about the all-seeing eye in relation to the Yazidis. How does that symbol fit into their belief system?
For the Yazidis, the all-seeing eye represents the watchful presence of God, the supreme being. The idea that he's always observing us, always aware of what we're doing.
So it's like that reminder, our choices matter. Our actions have consequences, even on a spiritual level.
Exactly. And the book says that because the Yazidis are so aware of being observed, they're driven to live with integrity, to strive for excellence in everything they do, and to make sure their choices match their spiritual values.
It's a powerful concept. Makes you think twice about those little white lies and, those not so great choices we all make sometimes.
It does, and the book highlights how this belief connects to the idea of divine providence, that everything happens for a reason, even if we can't always see the bigger picture.
So it's about trusting the universe, surrendering to the will of the divine, having faith that everything is unfolding as it should.
Exactly. But the book also makes it clear that surrender doesn't mean, just sitting back and letting things happen. It's about aligning ourselves with the flow of the universe, realizing we're part of something much bigger than ourselves, and working with those forces instead of against them.
It's like finding that sweet spot between surrender and taking action, recognizing that we have a role to play in creating our own destiny, but also trusting that we're being guided and supported by something larger than ourselves.
Beautifully put. And the Yazidis, with their unique beliefs, really offer this fascinating perspective on how to navigate that balance between surrender and action.
Okay, now I'm curious about the role of pillars in the Yazidi tradition. The book mentioned they have some special significance.
Right. As we've talked about, pillars represent gateways, thresholds, those points of transition between realms. And for the Yazidis, they symbolize the connection between the earthly and the divine.
So just like those pillars in Solomon's temple, they represent a bridge between the physical and the spiritual.
Exactly. And the book talks about how the Yazidis have these sacred pillars, often located in remote mountainous areas. They become pilgrimage sites. These places hold a special kind of energy, a kind of sacred resonance that helps people connect with the divine.
It's like they're saying, hey, if you want to connect with the divine, go to the places where the veil is thin, where those energies are strongest.
I like that. And there's this unique ceremony the book describes involving pillars that happens during certain festivals. They erect this tall wooden pillar and decorate it with colorful cloths, flowers, symbolic offerings. And it represents the axis mundi, the center of the world, the point where heaven and earth meet.
Wow, that imagery is so powerful. It's like creating a physical representation of that connection between humanity and the divine. What's the purpose of this ceremony?
The book explains that it's all about celebrating life, fertility, the renewal of nature. It's the Yazidis' way of giving thanks and reaffirming their connection to the cosmos.
So it's a ritual that reminds them of their place in the grand scheme of things, their connection to all of creation.
Exactly. And it's a really powerful reminder of those cycles, life, death, and rebirth, and how important it is to, to align ourselves with those rhythms.
It's a beautiful reminder we're not separate from nature, but a part of it,
Absolutely. And speaking of cycles, the Yazidis also believe in reincarnation. They believe that the soul journeys through many lifetimes, gathering all sorts of experiences and learning lessons along the way. And the ultimate goal is to achieve liberation from that cycle of birth, death, and rebirth.
So it's like this journey of evolution. The soul keeps refining itself through each lifetime until it finally achieves union with the divine.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. And the book suggests that this belief in reincarnation really aligns with the idea of spiritual alchemy, that we're always refining ourselves, transforming ourselves, both in this life and beyond.
It's a reminder that life is a journey, not a destination. Every experience, every challenge, every moment of joy is a chance to grow and transform.
Beautifully said. And the Yazidis, with their unique beliefs, offer this amazing perspective on how to navigate that journey of spiritual evolution.
Okay, so we have this really fascinating Yazidi worldview that embraces everything, the light and the darkness, the creation and destruction, those cycles. But how did the book specifically tie this back to the archetypes we talked about earlier, like the serpent and the tree?
Right. So the book points out how the Yazidis interpret those archetypes in ways that, challenge the traditional views. For example, in their tradition, the serpent isn't a tempter or a deceiver. It's a wise and benevolent being. It brings knowledge and enlightenment.
So the serpent is more like a spiritual guide, helping humanity realize its potential.
Exactly. And the tree, for the Yazidis, symbolizes the cosmos, the interconnectedness of all things. It's like that vast web of life connecting us all.
So the serpent and the tree represent knowledge and the interconnectedness of the universe. But how does that relate to the Yazidis' path uh, to enlightenment?
Well, the book suggests that for them, enlightenment comes from embracing knowledge and understanding our place within the cosmos. It's about seeing ourselves not as these separate individuals, but as threads in the grand tapestry of creation.
Like they're saying, embrace knowledge, understand your connection to everything, and you will find enlightenment.
That's a great way to put it. And the book stresses that this whole process isn't like a one-time thing. It's an ongoing journey of transformation and renewal. The Yazidi serpent, like in other traditions, sheds its skin. And that symbolizes shedding those old beliefs, those patterns, those limitations that are holding us back from embracing a new way of being.
So it's by constantly evolving, shedding those old layers, and embracing new possibilities as we move towards spiritual wholeness.
Exactly. And the book suggests that the Yazidis, with their interpretation of the serpent and the tree, offer a really powerful perspective on how to navigate that whole journey of awakening.
Okay, now I'm really curious to hear how the book connects the Yazidi beliefs to the black bull, that symbol of primal power and untamed energy.
The book highlights how the Yazidis, like lots of other cultures, revere the black bull. It's a powerful symbol of those untamed forces of nature that we all have inside us. They see it as like a representation of our shadow selves, those parts of ourselves that we try to hide, try to deny.
So it's not about being afraid of those shadow aspects, but about, recognizing them and integrating them into ourselves.
Exactly. The book suggests that the Yazidis understand that by embracing the black bull, by acknowledging those shadow aspects, they can tap into this like raw power, this creative energy.
So it's about harnessing that power instead of trying to deny it.
Precisely. And the book really emphasizes this embracing the shadow, finding power in those parts of ourselves that we usually reject. It's a key part of the Yazidi path to enlightenment.
It's like a reminder that true wholeness comes from embracing everything, the light and the darkness, the order and the chaos.
You got it. And the book suggests that the Yazidis, with their reverence for the black bull, teach us a valuable lesson in how to navigate those shadowy parts of ourselves and come out transformed.
Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. It seems like the Yazidis have this way of looking at these archetypes that, like, flips the script. It challenges those traditional interpretations and encourages us to, to look deeper, to find that hidden wisdom in those seemingly dark or negative aspects of ourselves in the universe.
You're right on. And the book highlights how this willingness to confront the shadow, to embrace the totality of life, is what makes the Yazidi tradition so resilient and so relevant to, how we search for meaning and purpose today.
Okay, now, we can't talk about the Yazidis without bringing up Lilith. How do they view her?
Yeah.
She's often demonized, right?
That's right. But the book explains that the Yazidis have a really unique take on Lilith, a take that's very different from the traditional one. They see her as this powerful feminine force connected to the moon and the night. She embodies those darker, more mysterious aspects of the feminine.
So she's not evil, but a force to be respected and understood.
Exactly. The book suggests that the Yazidis see Lilith as this essential part of the cosmic balance. She represents a very different side of the feminine than, say, the Virgin Mary.
It's about recognizing that there are many faces to femininity, with both light and shadow aspects.
I agree. And the book even hints that the Yazidis might have like practices or rituals associated with Lilith. They acknowledge her as this force to be reckoned with and maybe even worked with.
Wow, that's really interesting. Makes you wonder what other hidden knowledge might be preserved within their traditions.
It does, and the book encourages us to approach these lesser-known traditions with a sense of curiosity and respect, to recognize that they might hold really valuable insights into the mysteries of being human.
Okay, so we've talked about how the Yazidis view the serpent, the tree, the black bull, and Lilith.
Hmm.
But what about the hanged man? That archetype of surrender and transformation. How do they interpret that?
Well, the book connects the Yazidi understanding of the hangman back to their reverence for Melik Tassis, the peacock angel. Remember how we talked about his fall from grace and then his redemption?
Yeah, that whole transformative experience that ultimately allows him to fulfill his purpose.
Exactly. The book proposes that the Yazidis see a parallel between that fall and redemption and the hanged man archetype. Both Melik Tassis and the hanged man experience this symbolic death or descent, and then they rise to a higher level.
So they both embody that whole cycle of death and rebirth.
Yeah.
You have to let go of the old to embrace the new.
Exactly. And in the Yazidi tradition, this cycle is actually embodied by the peacock angel himself. He becomes a symbol of transformation, a reminder that even in those really dark moments, there's always the potential for redemption and ascension.
It's a message of hope, a reminder that even when things seem really tough, we have the power to rise above our challenges and reach that higher state of being. But I can't help but think, with all this talk about embracing the shadow and harnessing those powerful forces, aren't there some dangers involved?
That's a great question. And the book doesn't sugarcoat it. It actually warns against something it calls the ego trap.
The ego trap, what's that all about?
Well, the book is basically saying that when you pursue spiritual knowledge and power, it can easily inflate your ego, and that can lead you astray from, the true path of enlightenment.
So even when we have the best intentions, we can get caught up in wanting recognition, power, control over those forces we're trying to harness.
Exactly. And the book really emphasizes the importance of humility, surrender, and service as antidotes to this ego trap. It reminds us that the true path isn't about personal gain or, making yourself look good. It's about transcending the ego and dedicating yourself to something bigger than yourself.
It's about recognizing that we're not separate from the divine, but actually expressions of it.
Beautifully put. The book suggests that true spiritual power doesn't come from trying to dominate or control those forces, but from aligning ourselves with them, becoming a channel for their expression in the world.
Okay, now that is powerful.
Yes.
But I know the book also talks about those more controversial aspects of these ancient mysteries, right? Their association with magic and, well, what some people might call the occult.
Right. The book acknowledges that these traditions have often been misunderstood and, demonized, especially within mainstream religious contexts. But it challenges those preconceived notions, suggesting that magic, in its purest form, is simply the art of working with energy. It's about harnessing and directing energy to create change.
Right, it's about understanding those subtle forces that govern the universe and learning how to work with them consciously.
Exactly. And the book suggests that Tubal Cain, with his mastery of metalworking, might have actually understood and even harnessed these principles of magic. It's proposing that his craft wasn't just about manipulating physical materials, but about working with energy, intention, and maybe even consciousness itself to create these objects of power and beauty.
It makes you wonder what other kind of knowledge might be hidden within those ancient crafts and traditions.
Doesn't it? And the book is challenging us to approach these topics with an open mind, to really question those assumptions that might be limiting our understanding of what's actually possible.
It's about reclaiming our power as co-creators of our reality.
Exactly. And recognizing that those ancient mysteries might hold the keys to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've peeled back layers of history and symbolism to reveal this whole hidden world of interconnectedness and ancient wisdom.
I agree. It's amazing how the book takes all these seemingly random pieces, angelic magic, biblical figures, those archetypes, these Yazidi beliefs, and weaves them together to create this whole narrative about the evolution of human consciousness.
Now, I'm wondering, how does the book tie this all back to Tubal Cain? Where does he fit into this grand story?
Well, the book suggests that Tubal Cain, with his mastery of metalworking, his possible connection to the Watchers, and the way he embodies those primal archetypes, represents this, pivotal figure in human history. He's a bridge between the divine and the material, the spiritual and the technological.
So he's not just a blacksmith. He's a symbol of human potential, of our ability to harness those creative forces and shape our own destiny.
That's a great way to put it. The book is challenging us to think about how we can embody those qualities of Tubal Cain in our own lives. How can we tap into our creativity, our inner fire, and become the architects of our own evolution?
Okay, that's a powerful message. It's like it's calling us to step into our power, to recognize that creative potential that we all have, and use it wisely, use it creatively to shape a future that aligns with, with our highest values.
That's what it's all about. The book suggests that those ancient mysteries, those seemingly fantastical stories and symbols, actually contain deep truths about us, about our potential, about those forces that shape our lives. And when we understand those mysteries, when we decode those symbols, we can unlock this deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the cosmos.
Okay, I'm ready to unlock some mysteries. The book also delves into the story of Solomon's temple, right?
Yes, it does. And it suggests that Solomon's temple wasn't just, a building. It was a symbolic representation of something much bigger, the human soul, the cosmos, the divine blueprint for creation.
So we're not just talking about bricks and mortar. We're talking about a blueprint for spiritual evolution, a template for aligning ourselves with those cosmic forces.
Exactly. And the book explores how Tubal Cain's legacy might actually be woven into the very fabric of Solomon's temple.
Okay, now you've got me really intrigued. Tell me more about this connection between Tubal Cain and Solomon's temple. So we've got Tubal Cain, this master metal worker who seems to connect the divine and the human, and we've got Solomon's temple, this mysterious building that the book says is a blueprint for something way bigger than just a place of worship. How does the book connect the two?
Well, it delves into those Masonic traditions surrounding Solomon's temple, especially their focus on those two pillars, Jachin and Boaz, that stood at the entrance. Those pillars are often interpreted as symbols of duality and balance, but the book suggests they might have a deeper connection to Tubal Cain.
Okay, remind me about those pillars again. What do they mean in those Masonic traditions?
Oh, they're super important. Central to their symbolism and rituals, they represent strength, wisdom, and that balance of opposing forces that's needed for spiritual progress.
Right, right. It's about harmonizing those seemingly opposite forces, light and dark, masculine and feminine, order and chaos. But how does Tubal Cain fit into that whole picture?
The book suggests that Tubal Cain, with his skills in metalworking and his potential connection to the Watchers and their forbidden knowledge, might be symbolically linked to the creation of those pillars, or even to their spiritual essence. It's saying that he understood the true purpose of those pillars, their role as conduits for powerful energies,
Yeah.
maybe even as gateways to other dimensions.
So they weren't just decorations or, holding up the roof. They were more like antennas, channeling that cosmic energy into the temple. And the book's saying that Tubal Cain was the one who knew how to build those antennas, basically.
Exactly. And it goes even further, connecting the all-seeing eye, the one often shown above those pillars, to Tubal Cain himself. It's saying that it symbolizes his watchful presence, making sure humanity evolves in the right direction.
Okay, so Tubal Cain is more than just a blacksmith from the Bible. He's shaping human history, guiding us toward higher consciousness. That's a pretty wild idea.
It is, and it makes us rethink these ancient figures. They're not just characters and stories. They're archetypes that represent these profound truths about us, about human potential, and about the forces that shape our lives.
Now, the book also explores the symbolism of the serpent and the tree in relation to Solomon's temple.
Right, it does, and it offers this really fascinating interpretation. It goes beyond those traditional ideas about, temptation and the fall from grace.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does the book approach those symbols in this context?
Well, it suggests that the serpent might actually represent Kundalini energy, that primal force that's dormant at the base of the spine. It's the energy of, transformation, spiritual awakening.
And the tree.
The tree, the book says, symbolizes the spinal column. And the serpent's ascent up the tree represents the rising of that Kundalini energy through the chakras, leading to expanded consciousness, spiritual enlightenment.
So it's an internal process, a transformation within the individual that mirrors the external symbolism of the serpent and the tree.
Exactly. And get this, the book connects this interpretation to Tubal Cain, suggesting that his metalworking skills might have been linked to an understanding of and even the ability to manipulate this Kundalini energy.
So he wasn't just shaping metal, he was shaping consciousness. He was like an energy worker, a kind of proto-alchemist.
That's a great way to put it. And it makes you think that these ancient traditions might have contained knowledge and wisdom that we're only starting to grasp today.
It's like they were tapping into these subtle forces and energies that we're just beginning to understand with modern science and esoteric practices.
Right. And the book encourages us to approach these ancient teachings with humility, with an open mind, because there's so much we can learn from those who came before us.
Now, the book brings in Lilith, too. She's often, misunderstood, demonized. How does it present her role in relation to Tubal Cain and Solomon's temple?
The book argues that Lilith's bad reputation comes from a misunderstanding of what she truly represents. It suggests she embodies those untamed primal aspects of the feminine, those parts that have been suppressed, especially in patriarchal societies, and it connects those qualities to Tubal Cain's mastery of metal, suggesting he may have understood the importance of working with this raw creative energy, maybe even integrating it into his craft.
So instead of being afraid of Lilith, the book is saying she's a necessary force, a power that needs to be understood and integrated, not just in relation to the feminine, but in the context of creation and transformation in general.
That's a great way to put it. And it hints that Solomon's temple, with all its symbolism and sacred geometry, might have actually been designed to harness and balance these very energies, the primal forces represented by, Lilith, the black bull, the serpent, the tree.
So the temple is like this microcosm of the universe, a place where those seemingly opposite forces are brought into harmony.
Exactly. And the book suggests that Tubal Cain, with his understanding of those forces, might have played a key role in how the temple was built. Not just as a craftsman, but as someone who understood its spiritual purpose.
Okay, so we've got Tubal Cain, the pillars, the serpent and the tree, Lilith, all these elements coming together in Solomon's temple. But where does the black bull fit in?
The book says the black bull, the symbol of that raw power, that untamed energy, might represent the primal force that drives the whole process of creation and transformation. It suggests that Tubal Cain, through his metalworking, knew how to harness and channel this black bull energy, maybe even incorporating it into his work and into the very design of Solomon's temple itself.
So it's not about being afraid of that primal energy. It's about recognizing its power and learning how to work with it consciously. It's like we need to integrate those wild, instinctual parts of ourselves to become whole.
Precisely. And the book challenges us to think about how we can do that in our own lives. How can we tap into those forces within ourselves and use them in a positive way? How can we embrace all of who we are, the light and the shadow, to, fuel our personal growth and our spiritual journey?
It's a call to step into our power, to recognize the creative potential that's inside each of us.
Exactly. The book suggests that those ancient mysteries, those symbolic connections between Tubal Cain, Solomon's temple, and those archetypal figures are all clues, guides for our own journey of self-discovery and transformation.
Okay, wow. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. From angelic magic and Yazidi beliefs, to the serpent and the tree, the black bull and the hanged man. What a journey. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
What strikes me the most is how the book encourages us to look at these ancient myths and symbols, not as literal events, but as representations of these universal truths about being human. They're like guides for our own spiritual growth. It's a reminder that those seemingly fantastical stories and characters often hold deep wisdom that can illuminate our lives today and help us shape our future.
It's like they're speaking a different language, a code we need to crack, to understand those hidden parts of reality. And the book is giving us the tools to do that.
Exactly. And it's inviting us to participate in our own transformation, to embrace the mystery, and to, embark on that journey of self-discovery guided by the wisdom of those who came before us.
That's a great way to put it. This deep dive has given us so much to think about, a whole new way of looking at the world and our place in it. I'm definitely going to keep exploring these ancient mysteries and see where they lead.